Is Diablo 4 dead? Did Path of Exile kill Diablo 4 with the most recent announcement? I've seen it time and time again in the comments, but I wanted to talk about the future and the life cycle of Diablo 4. It's a pretty hot topic, and there's a lot of people that are saying, no, Path of Exile won't kill Diablo 4. I've seen a couple people say, I only want to play Diablo 4, not Path of Exile 2. But there's no denying that Path of Exile will definitely make a dent in the action RPG genre. Like, POE2 is going to be massive. To put it in perspective, a lot of people are kind of talking about Diablo kind of eliminating itself at this rate, considering the amount of bugs that have just been introduced into the game in the most recent season, and the amount of frustration that does definitely exist. And I want both of the games to be successful. I genuinely like action RPGs. I'm going to be even interested in playing all the other action RPGs that come out this year and next year, with, of course, we're getting the Titan Quest 2 release, and Dragonkin is also looking pretty good as well. But there's no denying that the brand new Path of Exile 2 content reveal is just doing tremendously well. We can see that in the 11 days that it was posted, it's almost at 3 million views, which is huge when you compare it to the Diablo livestream that was also revealed, where, well, it's at 55k views. And not all the time does views equals that there's more interest in the game, but there is some sort of correlation, and I want to kind of use some metrics. And on top of this, I've been watching other content creators' videos. Shoutouts to Rob over here talking about the lack of mid-season content. Remember, the current season of Diablo that we're playing needs to last up until January. I'm pretty much already done with the game as far as this season goes. Like, I've done everything that I really wanted to. You can see there's a video by Riker talking about why Season 6 is losing players fast. And it definitely is something to consider when you look at what we are also getting in the next season. A lot of the newer stuff really comes down to like these numerical changes, and we are getting some like newer gems, but a lot of these are just kind of numbers, like as in, okay, the next season, I get to deal 25% increased damage to hex enemies. Okay, I get to get more movement speed, and then I get to do 4% more damage for every aura and hex that I apply on the enemies. So it's kind of like a damage on conditions, which is interesting because the way that I saw Diablo, and a lot of people saw it, was like damage on Tuesdays. They even talked about it, they joked about it, we're going to reduce this damage on Tuesdays, but then when the new season comes out, what are we getting? Well, it's more numbers by X condition. And I think that that is something that they need to look at in terms of making an action RPG a little bit more interesting. When you make a new season to make people excited, it can't just be that instead of doing a pit 110, I can now do pit 115. The lack of endgame is kind of a big pain point, and I want to talk about some solutions and some suggestions to make the game better as a Diablo 4 partner. So first off, I want to use this kind of as a reference here for this video because it kind of ties into PoE killing Diablo 4, or does Diablo 4 even have a place? Is Diablo 4 dead? That's kind of, again, the same topic here. So I showed off a video talking about all the differences between Season 7 for Diablo 4 and all of the new stuff that we're getting in PoE2, all the new classes, ascendancies, all the stuff that we kind of expect. And I was reading the comments because at the end of the video, I asked which one is better for you and which one is the game that you guys are looking forward to playing in the next upcoming, month, because we're getting the new season tomorrow for Diablo for the PTR, and then obviously in a couple days we get the PoE2 early access. And a lot of people kind of said the same thing. I was looking at a lot of the comments because you guys are my viewers. If you guys want to see a certain thing, as long as I genuinely enjoy it too, I'll play more PoE2 if that's what you guys want to see. But I'm going to play Diablo 4 and PoE regardless, but if you guys like more, obviously it helps me. This is kind of like a job, so whatever does well on the channel, that's what I'm going to produce for you guys. But a lot of people, and this is like just in the comments over here, you can see these are the top comments. That's at least how I sorted them. But a lot of people said the same thing, which is like, this is PoE2, I'm not playing D4 anymore, PoE2 no questions. That's what you guys want to see, so that's what I will also deliver, but I will still check out Diablo 4. I really didn't see that many things saying, yeah, I'm really hyped for Season 7, I'd rather play this over PoE2. You can see that time and time again. And I was also checking out the numbers in terms of performance, because PoE2 is going to be making waves, there's no doubt about that. We can check out the Diablo 4's average viewers on the live stream. This is using Solino. It's a great way to kind of track how well a channel or a specific game is doing. But we're just looking at the past 14 days because, again, the live stream, the announcement was made 11 days ago. So the average viewers that were watching the stream, that means people that are interested. This is your most dedicated fan base. Now, I want to say that Diablo could be kind of in a different category here. And the reason why I say it's kind of in a different category is a more casual game may not have everyone tune in for the most recent update live stream. Like, they're just going to be like, whatever, I'll watch a YouTube video after, you know, because I make these videos where I'm like, here's the summary, here's the patch notes for some of the most important info. But the most dedicated fan base is going to be there time and time again, reading the blogs, reading everything, watching all the live streams. Diablo 4 had 3,300 average viewers, and this is their peak viewers. Now, when we take a look at PoE's numbers, these are completely in a different category. And I've always thought that Diablo was more popular. I'm never saying that, you know, one game is better than the other, because I genuinely enjoy both of them, but I'm looking at just the numbers. I always thought Diablo 4 was more popular as a game. Like, as in, if you were to ask me, who do you think has more players? I would have 100% bet on Diablo as like a franchise, had way more numbers than Path of Exile. Again, I'm not saying one game is better than the other here, but I would have been in disbelief if you told me that the numbers were looking like this. This is a big wake-up call for me personally as a content creator. I'm glad, because I've been playing PoE for a long time. I've got thousands of hours in PoE, hundreds of videos out for guides. I do full walkthroughs. Same thing with Diablo. Like, I make video guides in this, but this is just crazy amounts of a huge difference. And I hope this is a wake-up call also to the Diablo team, as I think that they need to expand the amount of people that are working on this game. We need bigger seasonal forms of content, because it's not able to keep us interested in for a long period of time. When we look at Diablo 4 as a games as a service, right? Like, if Diablo 4 came out and like they just dropped the expansion and that was it, they didn't make, you know, seasons, it wasn't a live service game, I would be more lenient on this. But if they want us to come back and play until like January, there just isn't simply enough content to keep people entertained. And I was checking out what some people were saying more recently, and this was a long post over here, but a lot of these things I feel like are repeated time and time again. You can see this is a top 5% post over here talking about after grinding the Paragon 300, which kudos to you, sir. It's a very long grind for Diablo 4 in the current states, because you have to keep on grinding the pit. There's a couple pain points that they mentioned, but the main thing that I wanted to go over, which is the TLDR over here, is that there's a lot of base game features that they really needed. Now, we are getting one of these, which is the Armory, which is cool that we're getting in Season 7, and we're getting that literally tomorrow. Hopefully, it won't have any bugs, but a lot of times with Diablo, there's just so many bugs with Diablo 4. But few other things like a map overlay, actual endgame is the thing that I want to focus in on. They say that the game feels much better than it did at launch, but it has a long way to go. We're talking 1 year after release, after expansion 2. Personally, I said that Season 4 and 5 were so much better than Season 6 in terms of the design of the game, getting those aspects to actually, you know, get those max rolls, the masterworking and tempering. I still think they need to kind of tune those to make those a little bit better, and they have a long way to go before they can stand up with PoE2. Okay, but 2. But nonetheless, there is a bunch of pain points, and I want to kind of go over those. But the main thing that I really wanted to focus in on, and this is a really, really good post over here, but it goes over basically the end game of Diablo 4, trying to get those mythic items, going up to the boss, like those tormented bosses, and just slapping them 1 times. Again, it's not what I would consider like endgame pinnacle cool content. I think the bosses could be more challenging, but they also need to yield rewards that are better, especially because farming these mythics to me personally isn't really fun, because you have to get a group together, got to make sure everyone you know, shows off their materials, because it's another pain point where like you have a group finder and people say, yeah, I want to do bosses, but like they don't have materials to contribute, and then, you know, people argue and they're like, dude, what the heck, how did you join this rota but you didn't have any runs? So perhaps it'd be good if Diablo 4 in the like party finder, if you do try to do a rota, it requires you to at least have the materials to search. Otherwise, like, what's the point of them kind of leeching? It is definitely a problem, especially in the casual community. But honestly, the best way to do rotas, I'll be straight up with you guys, go do a Diablo live stream and say, hey, do you have mats? And then you guys can get a group together. It's fast. The person usually will respond because they want to do the thing too, unless of course they've gotten the mythics. Then once you get the mythics, there's really no point to go for more mythics unless you're like, I want the triple greater affix, which is another thing where it becomes quite difficult. I think one of the biggest pain points with the endgame in Diablo compared to PoE is specifically the trading. Trading is really rough in Diablo 4 with the dupes and all the things that have been going on with the game. But I want to say that that isn't designed in the game. That's kind of like, unfortunately, there are dupes in the game, and, you know, people's items have been poofing. I think that's a bigger issue with the game, but we could just have the drops become more common so people don't dual wield mom's credit card to go ahead and buy the gold so they can go get the items to actually get in-game content, which is a problem that Diablo 3 actually addressed by making it so you can actually get the items, so you didn't have to play the trade auction house the whole day, because the philosophy was, well, if players want to get the best items in the game, we need to make it so they can just play the game to get the best items in the game. They don't want people to go ahead and play like an auction house. But if you're playing Diablo 4 at this point, if you want to get the best pieces of gear in the game, that's what you do. You don't just play the game thinking, man, I can't wait to get a 4 GA item. It's just unrealistic to go ahead and have the mindset of playing to actually get the items. You're just trading to get the items. Another thing I wanted to kind of bring up, which this person mentioned, would you still be playing this game if it was not an IP, not in the Diablo universe? I'm saying, like, if it wasn't Diablo 4, if this game was called like Dungeon Slayer, you know, Dungeon Slayer Magic Dungeon, I don't know, whatever, there's probably a game called Dungeon Slayer, but basically, would you play Diablo 4 if it was not a Diablo game? And there are a lot of people were saying no, and I was like, wow, that's a pretty big wake-up call. And then I also was thinking about, like, when I would make tier lists in, like, games, I always went back to, like, saying Diablo 2 was so great and Diablo 1 was great. I even had a lot of fun with Diablo 3, but would I put Diablo 4 in, like, the high-tier category in terms of, like, the action RPG? I think it's a okay action RPG, but I don't think I'd put it on like the legendary level of Diablo 2, and like if I was to put games in here like StarCraft 1, I really like those games. These were like legendary games, and I feel like Diablo 4 doesn't have that like tone that Diablo 1 and 2 really had. I feel like Diablo 4, while the graphics are in the same level of Diablo 1 and 2's tone, the gameplay is very, very similar to D3. In fact, all of the design decisions really lend towards Diablo 3's direction, with like, oh, you got to get these glyphs up, you got to level them up hundreds of times. It just feels like you're kind of churning out a machine versus like a game that is really designed to make people think and kind of explore a little bit more, with like some of the more interesting things that you can do in Diablo 2 with like Beast, like the Runewords. In fact, Runewords is a whole nother subject, but it just had a lot more to it, especially at its time. In fact, like there's so many things in like Diablo 2 that are just better designed than Diablo 4. I look at the game in terms of blue items actually had a point in Diablo 2. Heck, you could have white items, you could socket them, and like there's just all the items had a purpose. And in Diablo 4, one of the like big issues with the game is that like there's so many things that are absolutely useless. You guys remember how we had blue glyphs for so long? Like what the heck was a blue glyph? Like what was the point of it? And then also all the vendors are useless. There's so many things and pain points of the game. Where's the loot filter? What's the point of the clan? Like there's so many things that Diablo 2 had that were just done much better. Like yellow items. There's no point of a yellow item in Diablo 4. They're just might as well be deleted. But I want this game to actually do well. Like I said, I'm a Diablo partner. I play all of the Diablo games genuinely. I don't play as Mortal as much, but I genuinely still play Diablo 1 and 2. Specifically with mods, but it's because I want to see more content in the Diablo universe. So I was thinking, like, you know, I wanted to answer the question, is Diablo 4 dead? Has it been killed? Did PoE kill it? And I want to say that Diablo 4 is still a pretty decent entry action RPG as far as like newer action RPGs go. You know, I would honestly suggest Diablo 3 is better in terms of a game because it is less buggy and the gameplay is a lot smoother, and you have a lot more options with, like, you know, you have set items, you have like the LON where you can basically make your own build out of pretty much most of the different like skills in the game, like even like the runes. I feel like the skill tree in Diablo 4 is lacking as well, but the main thing I wanted to go ahead and go over and kind of answer is, did PoE kill Diablo? I think Diablo can still exist as a game. Like when I look at D4, I'm like, if I was to recommend someone a action RPG for their very first action RPG, Path of Exile is really complex and it's hard. And I think that Diablo can be a good entry action RPG, specifically Diablo 3 and 4. Like I said, I'm mentioning that Diablo 3 I think is just a better game because the amount of bugs that exist in this game are so astronomically high. Like I'm trying out some of the non-meta builds, and in order for these builds like to be good in the game, almost every single build is buggy, and that is frustrating because as a player that likes to make build guides and stuff, when I look at all these numbers, I can calculate and be like, okay, this skill should be the best, but I can't do that because the game is so buggy that the best builds are always some sort of unintended interaction, and like, okay, well, I guess I was wrong, guys. And that happens with a lot of content creators. They're like, guys, this is going to be the best build in this season, and then some other bug comes out, and like, you got to use it, and then they nerf it, and then they rebuff it, which is something that I've seen in Season 7 as well. When we look at like Ball Lightning and Hoda, those were the best builds in a lot of seasons, specifically in Season 2. Those builds were just so incredibly powerful. And then they nerfed them, and then no one played them. And then now they're like, okay, guys, we're going to be buffing them up. Well, if you just didn't nerf them, or you reworked the way that the skill would interact and like how it would be worded, so it just like performed at that level, you wouldn't have to nerf it and then rebuff it back up because people are like, dude, I can't play Hoda Barb anymore. I can't play Ball Lightning. They sucked. You nerfed it. And so I want to say that they should just bring everything up, and they should also, instead of, again, fixing the bugs in terms of like the interaction, because this could take a long time, just change the way that the wording works, like with like Vicious Shield or whatever. Just allow us to go past 100, change it in the text. That's a lot faster, and then you could buff up the rest of the skills, because the way that the game is right now, I know they wanted to lower these numbers, which is almost another subject, but they wanted these numbers to be a lot smaller, right? So they reduced the item power, they reduced a lot of these numbers, so we wouldn't hit for quadrillions of damage, but we still hit for quadrillions of damage. If you make these monsters, especially in like the high levels of the pit, have quadrillion levels of health, well then why would you lower our stats so we can't even fight the bosses? There's a lot of builds that struggle past like pit 100, which is an issue when you need to level up these glyphs to 100. So I think that there's a lot of pain points the game does have for sure, and hopefully these can be addressed. But again, I think Diablo 4 and Diablo 3 are great action RPGs for like a first timer. Again, when people say, should I be playing Diablo 1? Like, because I get people that maybe come to my channel because I play a lot of different games, whether it be Overwatch, Undecember, or whatever game I'm playing at the time. But I get people to ask, I kind of want to get into Diablo. Should I start off with Diablo 1? And I tell them, no, do not start out with Diablo 1. You will play that game for 20 minutes and be like, dude, this game is ridiculously hard. I only have like 0 skills. I don't get skills when I level up. It's not a very beginner-friendly game at all. Even though I like Diablo 1 and 2 over Diablo 4 in the current game state, I would not recommend them for someone that's brand new to the action RPG genre. They're just way too hard, right? So I think Diablo 4 is not dead in that sense, but I think that Diablo 4 definitely is dead to a lot of people in terms of being able to last throughout the season. It doesn't feel like a live service game. So this is the big pain point that I want them to fix, and here's my suggestions for them. So we're going into kind of the solutions here. As a Diablo partner, I want the game to perform well. I want to enjoy playing the game, but right now, I'll be honest, I feel like Diablo is dead to me right now for continuously playing the season. Like, there's no point right now. I actually liked it when we had level 100. I didn't understand that going back from level 100 to go and be like, okay, level 60 is now the maximum level. That, to me, seems like such a backwards game design decision. If they want to revert that, hey, I'd be totally cool with it, but I actually expected when the expansion to come out to go to level 110, 120. I think that makes more sense than the current system, but hey, it's the way it is. I personally don't really like Paragon's system like that. It almost feels infinite to some people, even though you have 300 as the number. If people can't reach that number, I think that there is a mindset of like, oh, I can't even max out this season. I'm not even going to play next season. It was just like, I got burnt out. And before in season 4 and 5, I think the game was genuinely in a better spot. But anyways, let's go over some of the solutions now. So I think there needs to be bigger seasons. It can't be, again, this is the stuff that like we see in season 7, where it's like you can deal more damage on X condition. And we are getting these new like powers, and I think the new powers are cool, but they kind of do the same thing, whether that's grouping up the enemies. It's going to be kind of hard to see like brand new things that are like, as far as the powers go, because technically this season, while I want to say this is one of the best seasons that we've got in terms of an announcement, there's a new boss too, which is really cool, but it has to be something that can keep players entertained throughout the several months that a season lasts. Now, will it do it? I hope so, man. We're going to be testing it out tomorrow. But I think the seasons need to be bigger overall. This is another thing that someone mentioned when I was looking at, like, after these things over here, as far as, like, these radical seasons. We were promised seasons that were wild. Season 1 and 2, they kind of really tried, but like if we're looking at the Realm Walkers, I hated this. I even mentioned this when I had the Vessel of Hatred review copy like a month basically before the game came out. I was even saying I hated the Realm Walkers. They had started buffing these again and again, but I hated this. This is not fun enough to keep me entertained for the entire duration of the season. So these seasonal forms of content, I feel like need to be way more exciting to actually do, and they need to encourage a little bit more brain mechanic. And this season we are getting kind of a better season, but it is a repeat of the Vampiric season, which I honestly think was one of the best seasons, so I'm actually looking forward to it. But I think we need not only things that we've seen in the past, but like I want something new. I think a lot of people kind of feel the same way with this, and I feel like that it really needs an end game. It cannot just be doing the pit 30 hours a day, because the pit itself is the only way that you're getting XP. And if you want people to actually do other forms of content, it needs to be valuable. Once we get our mythics, we're not going to go to the pit just to get all of the best items. The best items are only acquired by going to the boss, and which is another pain point, which is just going and one slapping a boss 500 times. It's literally like that. And I think we need some real forms of end game, and that kind of ties into the real bosses. Like Duriel and I think Gregor are actually pretty decent boss fights, but there comes to a point where like you just slap them because you've already done it. I think new bosses could be cool to see, whether they bring Ashtaroth or any of the other bosses back from the campaign, but to make them challenging. But if you make them challenging, they need to drop something that's so good that it makes us want to do it again and again. And if the best items are only mythics, and mythics aren't tradable, after I get mine, I never want to do them again, because it's not fun to do them 500 times. So that could be something that could be considered as well. I think there needs to be a temporary rework as far as bricking. We have those scrolls to reset, but we can still brick items, and I feel like that doesn't feel good. So that could be something to consider, like in terms of a temporary rework. As far as master rework, I think checkpoints are an excellent addition. So you know how you go from like you get the big upgrade at 4, 8, and 12, and if you reset, it resets it from 12 to 0, which kind of feels bad. So I think checkpoints could be a little bit of a leniency towards a better designed system, so we don't have to be as frustrated when we masterwork the same thing 2 times and we're like, okay, I gotta get this last one to get the next breakpoint so I get some, bonus. It's not really fun to have to reset again and again. Then you gotta go farm all the dark side. I think that the checkpoints would be a great solution, but I think a better solution would just be to let us decide what to select. If I go back to why I would suggest for someone to play Diablo 4, is it is a decent entry action RPG, but the frustration that these two interactions have at the end game make people feel frustrated and make people literally quit the game when this happens. Because if the end game is sitting there doing the same thing again with the masterworking, which is not fun because you farm for a long time to get 0 progression, I think doing the checkpoints would be a great solution for this frustration. And then also, I've been talking about this in almost every single chance that I get with the devs. As a Diablo partner, with times we have these meetings, I've been trying to tell them, man, we need some PvP. PvP would really allow people to have some form of endgame content that is almost infinite. While there probably would be some broken class, like Spiritborn or something like that. Hey, eventually, hopefully, this can get some sort of balance, right, in PvP. And then also clans. These are the 2 things I've been talking about again and again. PvP and clans are the 2 things that could make this game really cool. This is a next-gen game. I don't know why in this next-gen game we don't have these 2 features that I think are critical in some sort of MMO design. If you want people to build clans, well, what's the point of them? We don't have clan events. There's no clan leaderboards. There needs to be something to do with clans and specifically PvP. You could have PvP battlegrounds for clans, guilds that can actually battle. You could put up wagers. We can have the best clan listed. They can own a town. They can maybe do something. There needs to be some sort of incentive. Diablo Immortal actually does a lot more with clans and guilds, way better than Diablo 4. And I think it should exist in Diablo 4. We need some sort of sense of community, a reason to log in and play with each other. Because a lot of people, they just play solo in this game. I also still think a loot filter should exist in an action RPG. I just don't get why we have one of the biggest names in the action RPG genre still lack a loot filter in the game. That's just mind-boggling to me personally. And I get that, they kind of facilitate no loot filter by making it so only ancestral items are good, but it's just still not exciting, and it seems like a backwards game design to me personally. When you look at the way the items drop, it's if it's not a legendary ancestral, it's just garbage. It just makes the game kind of look broken to me personally. And also the tone of the game, this is something probably can't be fixed until maybe Diablo 5, because the tone of the game, it looks very dark and stuff, but with the amount of blasting that's going on, it doesn't have that dark Diablo 1 and 2 feel. When I look at this, if I was to look at a tier list, I always feel like these have a different tone than Diablo 3 and 4 in terms of the way that the game looks. Because when I'm blasting the screen with quadrillions of damage, I feel like it just gets to a point of it doesn't feel like the game is grounded. And that was the exact term that they used back when they were designing Diablo 4. They're we want this game to be more grounded. And it definitely started out slow and more grounded, more similar to Diablo 1 and 2. But with the exception of Diablo 2 having teleport, which is crazy fast. But when you're blasting for quadrillions of damage, and the monsters had this number that's just some sort of fantasy number for HP, it just becomes not grounded, if that makes any sense. But in Season 7, things to look forward to. We are getting the armory, the seasonal power is better, and we are getting a new boss. Now, I put this as a small note since the open world content is where the boss would spawn. I feel like the boss just might be too easy. It might just be in the same situation where we get a new boss, they're called like head rotten boss. There's supposed to be some new boss that comes in. If we go up to the new boss and we just slap it once and that's it, I'm going to be pretty disappointed. I hope this new boss has some new mechanics. We got to dodge, we got to play it, interact with it. But what is it going to drop? Because mythics are still like the top tier thing. To have like a good season, I feel like we need like if they announce seasons of set items and then we got set items again, I think that would be a little bit more exciting. There's newer builds that could emerge and stuff, but I really think they need to look at making the seasons to be a lot bigger and really focus in on the end game to make this game better and not be dead or have, you know, Diablo kill Diablo. But I think that is a very big pinpoint of this game when we look at things like Path of Exile just being these massive amounts of hype coming out into the game with all the different forms of endgame that they showed off already. I mean, it is pretty big, and hopefully, again, this is a wake-up call to the Diablo team to bring enough content to make people excited about the game. I think we just simply need a bigger team to work on the seasonal content to deliver us content that will keep people entertained throughout the life cycle of the game. Anyways, that's what I wanted to go over, and I've definitely been reading your guys' comments. Again, I kind of want to also tell you guys that I'm reading this. Okay, you see the one thing that D4 has that PoE after it ends does not have selectable difficulty settings. But again, I think a lot of people are stating kind of the same. I can't believe this is a choice. Who in their right mind would want to play Diablo 4 PTR? I'm still going to be playing both games, but I want to say that Diablo 4 definitely needs to go ahead and make some huge leaps, specifically in Season 7 and 8, if they want to keep people entertained, because looking at the numbers, POE2 is definitely going to be making a dent. Now, is it going to kill it off completely? I would say there's still going to be people that play Diablo 4. It's a more casual, friendly game for sure. And plus, it is both the games. Well, if you have Game Pass, I believe Diablo is free. And hopefully in the future, both the games can see success. That way, when one season is off, like we're kind of done with the season in Diablo, we can play PoE. And then once we get bored of PoE season, we can go hop into Diablo. I think it is kind of good to have multiple action RPGs. Heck, when Last Epoch comes out with a new season, we'll check that out as well. Hopefully Last Epoch will get a sequel. But I'm really looking forward to see how this stirs things up for the competition in action RPGs. But that's going to wrap up the video. If you guys enjoyed it, drop a like on it. If you're new here, hit subscribe, turn the bell if you'd like to see more of my content, and check out the pin. I'll put some other videos down below. But let me know, guys, how you feel about the current state of Diablo being dead. Do you guys kind of feel like the game is dead? To me, I'm gonna be straight up with you guys. I'm kind of burnt out of Diablo at the moment until Season 7's PTR, and then we'll check it out. And if it's not there, hey, we'll be on PoE2 for sure when early access comes out. But take care. I'll see you in the next video. Peace out.